Well, hello, and welcome back. I'm AJ O'Neill. This is Beyond Code Live. Oh, let's get something up on the screen here. And what we're going to be doing tonight is we've got two projects going on that are starting to come together. We've got the Auth project, for which we're going to be integrating GitHub sign-in. We already did kind of a part one of this, if you look in the previous videos. And it only took an hour thanks to GitHub's excellent documentation. Now we got to get that into the real project. The second, I want to add authentication to that so that I can do syncing between browsers so that drafts can be synced between browsers. So in order to do that, I'm going to use GitHub Auth, and I think we'll use some other GitHub APIs along the way later on in that project. We'll see what happens. Anyway, with that out of the way, I am looking at the chat and the comments both on Twitch and YouTube, and I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Oh, hello. I see somebody has already joined in. Feel free to tell me where you're from, what you're doing, what your affinity towards any of these technologies is. And yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get started with this. So what you see here is I actually going to stub this into for right now. So I'm going to put in a GitHub sign-in button next to this Google sign-in, well, link rather, GitHub sign-in link next to this. And I'm going to go back first. I should have put this in the doobly-doo. I'll go ahead and just add it into the comments right now. And then in the doobly-doo as soon as that gets up. But we had, yeah, this live code repo here. So let me go ahead and paste that on over there. Now it's in YouTube. And now it's on the Twitches. So inside of here is where we were last time, and in fact, there's the previous video right there. So let's go ahead and take a look at, I think I'm going to take a look at the HTML for this, first of all, because if I remember correctly, there's not a whole lot that we had to change here. Let's see, oh, maybe there is a little bit that we need to do. Yeah, all right, I'm going to copy this over. And essentially, I'm just going to write a function that takes a couple of options and produces this output. And let me see what I can grab from here. I'm going to move this one out of the way. I'm going to try to get just a few of these. Let's see, let's move that one out of the way. I don't think we need this one. I think I am actually, is it this one I'm going to use? Let's see. Nope. Let's get out of there. Okay. This is the project where I'm going to play around a little bit, and just so I can get things in the right place. So one thing I need to do, I cannot open up this .env file, or maybe I can. I don't think it has any secrets in it, but I don't want to. So I'm going to do .env. I'm going to call this .gh, and I'm going to say GitHub. I forget what they call it, but we're going to have a client ID. Let me go check out where was I in the other project. I need to open up yet one more window. Sorry. I think I need to go back to beyondcode.duckdns.org and grab a couple of things out of there. And this is a live, real client secret for GitHub, but it's set up in such a way that the app is called "Don't Log In, I'm a Test Application" or something like that. So I'm okay with showing you exactly what the secret is. So GitHub sign in. There we go. .env. So those are real secrets right there. And then what have I got in that? Okay, that's what I have there. So let me get out of here first. I'm actually going to go into the directory where we have the GitHub, no, Google sign-in. Where's that at? Right here. Okay, so in this area right here, I also want to add similar thing. We're going to have JS GitHub. And GitHub does not use OIDC. It actually uses OAuth2, which is basically the same thing as OIDC, except not standardized. So the difference that there was, OAuth2 was kind of a framework for creating login frameworks. It didn't actually specify anything. everything was left up as implementation details. OIDC takes the Auth2 framework and then actually makes something that you can code to out of it. So we'll have GitHub sign in. We'll call that there. And then I'll just move this over into our JavaScript. I think I know just where that will go. So there's a little bit of JavaScript here. I think I call it app.js or something like that. Main.js maybe. Yeah, let's call it main.js. And then let me look for where was this Google stuff at. Okay, so here's the Google link, generate OIDC URL. And technically that should take, well, the particular function is actually Google specific here. And all of this was done in prior projects. So if you are not up to speed on what I've been doing here, don't worry about it. You can just follow along if you want to. So Google, no, not this one. This one is going to be generate OAuth2 URL. And likewise, this one's going to have a client ID, a redirect, URI, a scope, and also a login hint. Although I don't think it's called login hint. Actually, I'm not sure if that's what it is. Let's see. And they actually have a couple of things in common, but I don't think it has enough in common to justify trying to collapse them into one. I definitely believe in the philosophy of the wet philosophy. There's the dry philosophy, the wet philosophy, the aha philosophy. I think that all of them are correct, that they balance each other out. For every measure, there's a countermeasure. So dry is don't repeat yourself. Wet is write everything twice. Aha is avoid hasty abstractions, which is kind of the middle between the two. It's kind of at the heart of what wet is. Anyway, I'm gonna see what are the components that we need. So I think I am gonna go back and change this to allow for the local host URL. Let me see, how would I use this? Generate OAuth2 URL, and then client ID. I'm going to pass in, it's going to be something like GitHub client ID. And then redirect URI is going to be something like document.location, something or other. And then scope is going to be read user email, it looks like. How do we pass in scope over here? How do we treat scope? Do we treat scope as an array? Doesn't look like we did, but I think we ought to. I think we ought to treat scope as an array that we then join together with an URL encode. So maybe I should say scopes here. And then we could collapse scope equals scopes.join like that. That could work. And then, yeah, a lot of this stuff looks like it's going to be the same. I think this could be factored out into a function now. This would be build query params or stringify query stringify. I think that's what the cool kids call it these days. Yeah. So we'll do query stringify, and then what? I guess we pass in options. Yeah, let's factor that out into its own little thing. And then just return, I guess. All right, options. Okay. And I think I'm going to add type hinting to this project too. I've been I've been using the TypeScript type hinting, and that's actually been working out really well. I've liked it a lot. I'm getting better at it, learning the quirks and the ways to do things the right way, etc. So we shall see. Okay, so that's joining. Right. Okay, that looks good. So we're going to do the same thing here, probably. And let's see, how do we build up options on this one? So I'm going to copy over a bit of this code first, and that's okay. And then it's not called login hint over here. Let's see, redirect URI. We've got scope, and we've got state, and we've got allow sign up equals true, and we've got login. So it's not called login hint. It's just called login. So var login equals login hint. So it does have that. And so what that is the email address of the user. You're basically saying when you log in with Google, you're going to get presented with that screen. If you belong to more than one organization, you get this screen and it says which Google account do you want to use. And same thing with GitHub in certain places. They might ask you which organization or which account or whatever it is do you want to use. And so that's what the login hint is. It's specifying the email address or the username for that. Okay. So we've got that. And figure out the client ID situation. Well, I'm going to bring that over. I'm going to bring that over to here. Give me just a second to do that. So I had, what was I doing? env.gh. Oops. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to cat env.gh and I'm going to put it in the env file first. Or maybe I can do one better, actually. I think I can do one better. I think that when I run, so I created this little script, gen-env, and then I can pass it the environment files that I want it to use. And then it can go template them out. Oh, I'm running it from the wrong place. That's okay. I'll get into the right place later. So where am I at? I'm in the API section. I need to go up to, there's the Auth 3000 project. That's where a lot of the stuff needs to happen. Okay. So then we'll do like that. That's good. So now we have 2 env files. And I think I need to change my template file now, which I think that was under utils env.tpl. Yeah, there we go. So GitHub, I just need to basically take both of these and then replace Google with GitHub, and I think I'll be good. Let's see. Google, GitHub. And I kind of like what I did here, where I decided to make it template out environment variables for use on the browser side. And I do that by this template file just specifies the environment variable as a statement, which does nothing. It doesn't make the linter quite happy, but that's fine. And then I'm going to replace those with putting in what it's supposed to have there. So we'll see that in just a second. So I had the GitHub client. I need to have the GitHub Redirect URL as well. I didn't have that in this one. GitHub Redirect, except I think it's technically called the URI. And I'm pretty sure that that's going to be the same for both of these, actually. So let me do .gh here. Oops, no. Okay, I'm just going to copy this over. There we go. And I think, so we get to make this local host. I don't know if it, we get to do HTTPS with localhost because Caddy does some magic to add a local host in the certificate chain, but then it turns out Node can't read that. So 6 of one, half a dozen of the other there. I think my approach of just doling out dynamic domains is a generally a better approach. I think I might talk with Matt about that. He's the one who runs the Caddy project. He might be amenable to it. We'll see. Because I've got a domain that's specifically for this purpose that's already in the registry for public domains, for the public suffix list. I've got a couple domains that are already in that for this purpose. Okay. So GitHub Redirect URI, localhost, what, 3000? Yeah, I think I'm going to do it on 3001 and save myself some headache on this. I'm actually going to open this up in the other window to double check on those secrets to see if they are things that I indeed cannot show. Because I think the only secret was just a random, something random that I generated. Sorry about that sneasel there. I should have hit mute on the mic. Okay, let's see. Base URL, redirect URL. Let's change all of this. HTTP 3001. Yeah, that'll be good enough for now. Yeah, it looks like the only thing that was secret in there was just a random identifier that I made up on my own. So nothing related to actual real important code. Anyway, so from here, what did I need to do? I think I already did it. So I just do npm run genyinv and I pass it some environment files, and then it takes that template and it writes it out. So now if we go take a look at it, we'll see, voila, there's our GitHub client ID and our redirect URI, which I guess should end in a slash. Let me go ahead and fix that real quick, and then I'll template those out again. That would be technically correct. And in some cases that matters. If you watch through the part of getting the GitHub, or no, the Google sign-in working, you saw that that was quite a pain. All right, so I think I need to go back into this main.js. So there's going to be an env.github client ID, and then env redirect URI. And then scopes are going to be, where were they? Right here. I don't know. Now that I think about it, it seems it actually is easier just to have that as a string rather than as an array that gets joined into a string. Whatever, we're going to keep with it. And then the login hint, we're just going to let that one be undefined. Was I checking undefined in this here? Okay, filter that the option exists. So false would not exist. So I think we could do this a little bit better. Undefined not equal type of. And we could actually do this even better. Undefined and nope. No, we can't. There we go. So that would allow false to be passed, but not null or undefined to be passed, which I think is a good way to go about this. All right, so the redirect URI, we know that needs to be URI encoded. Everything else needs to be URI encoded as well. So really at this point, it kind of becomes, let's say, authorize URL. And then this is so long it starts feeling like it ought to be an object unto itself. Well, that's probably about right. That's okay. So this here is GitHub's authorize URL. So maybe these two functions should end up joining into one, more or less. We'll see what this looks like as we continue. But we shall avoid hasty abstractions. Ever we shall. Okay, I think we should have here authorize URL plus question mark. And then what was something that was static about this? By the way, when I'm looking over here, that's because I am checking for comments. So if you've got any comments or questions, feel free. Even if they're a little off topic, I'll take a look at them and then decide whether I want to answer it now or later or whatever. Say allow sign up equals true. Sure, why not? There we go. And actually, let me go back up here. I was just thinking about this function. And I was thinking that I'd also... Okay, return undefined is not this, and null is not this. I'd also like empty string to be avoided, I think. We'll see. It's kind of a lot of conditions there. We'll see. We'll see. Okay. So we got client ID, redirect URI, scope, state. Yes, of course. Always state. All right. Let's go ahead and we'll take that here as well. So these two are starting to look mighty similar. It's like I could be convinced that it should just be maybe a generate OAuth2 URL function and find a way to work through the couple of differences between the two. But for now, I'm going to leave them the same. But we also have a state parameter here, client ID, blah, 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 and then nonce. We don't have a nonce for this one. So we got some similarities there for sure, but we also have some differences. So, all right. So this looks like the correct usage for that. So let's go find where we're doing the generate for the Google one. Generate OIDC URL to do rename to Google. And let's call this, instead, let's call it Google sign-in URL. That's a more appropriate name. And then we got Google sign-in URL. Yep, that looks good. And then let's do the same thing. We'll do var GitHub sign-in URL is right there. And same thing, GitHub OAuth2 URL. And then GitHub. Okay. generate OIDC. I'm also going to take our OIDC base URL and move that, generate OIDC. I'm going to move that here. Yeah, these are becoming more and more similar. I can see where they're similar and where they're different. You definitely don't want to abstract things before you've written them twice. That's for sure, because when you write them twice, you discover where they're similar and where they're not similar, and then that kind of tells you where the abstraction should be. If it starts to get too hairy, just back out the abstraction and duplicate the code instead. Don't increase cyclomatic complexity. I don't know what the metric is, but cyclomatic complexity is basically how many if statements there are, how many branches of code, how many different ways a function could possibly have an outcome. And you don't want to increase that to abstract something, or at least not past a particular point. The Ruby people were a little bit extreme on that front, and has some pretty serious performance penalties in their case. Anyway, I think that looks good. And I think I already ran what I needed to run. So let's just refresh this and see what we get here. And also I want to see, can I do like this? Will that work? No, it won't. It won't work, but let's see why. Okay, well, I was mistaken. So I actually am going to have to go back. I don't know how we're going to do this quite right. Let me see. I wonder what Helmet's doing there. Is Helmet causing it to redirect to HTTPS or something? Let me see. Go over here in the other one. I'll turn that back to HTTPS. Sure. And then same thing here. Let's turn this back to HTTPS and back to port 3000. Because I've got to go into reverse proxy, even on the local development environment. And I guess it doesn't matter that much. We're going to be able to. The problem is that the HTTPS certificate for localhost comes from a private root certificate authority, which is in my macOS keychain, but is not. Node is not accessing that. Hello, welcome. Feel free to tell me where you're from, what you're doing, why you're here. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. All right, we don't have we don't have GitHub sign-in showing up, but we should, I think. Maybe there's something that's making it hidden. JS Google hidden is equal to false. Okay, then we also want to do GitHub hidden is false. And then there's probably, yep, in the same place where we have that becoming hidden is true, we'll also want this to be hidden as true. Okay, cool. So now I think they're in parity with one another between the GitHub sign-in and the Google sign-in. And then I also want to add a little bit of visual separator there. Let me see, what am I trying to do? Let's go public index, And then where is GitHub sign in? Just add a pipe. People with screenwriters hate it when you put a pipe because it reads as pipe. There's a way to do this where you, it's some sort of pseudo class or something. I'm not 100% sure what it is. But you can get it so a screen reader won't say pipe. And you essentially, let me look it up real quick. CSS pre-text character list. List is where you see it because there's bullets. Lists have bullets or numbers. CSS style bullet points. List style type. That's not quite what I want. How to make custom bullet lists. Yeah, that's not what I want. This is just the built-in stuff. But there's something else that you can use to make it whatever you want. There we go. Pancakes. This is what I want. Content. Before. Pseudo selector before. I'm not sure how that works. Yeah, I don't want to deal with it. But basically, I'm going to try one thing. I'm going to try one thing to see if I can learn about the right way to do this. So I think people tend to use I for this, and I think you can do style and then put content equals like so. And then I guess you close out the I. Yeah. Now let's refresh and see if it's still there. Nope, it's not there. So I'm going to revert that. We'll just go back to using the pipe. But you do something with the CSS before class, and then you can get it so a screen reader doesn't say Google sign in, pipe, GitHub sign in. Now let's see if this looks right. I guess I could just click on it, but before I do, I actually want to go back and make sure that in my GitHub project, we're going to have to go to GitHub. I'm going to have to select my organization, and I'm going to have to go update my URL. So let's see if we can go. I think we go into settings here. Yeah, we go into settings here. And from here we go to apps, or maybe it's developer settings, something like that. Yeah. OAuth sign in, test only. Do not grant extra permissions to this. That's the very one that we want. Homepage URL, authorization, callback URL. So GitHub only allows you to have one. I'm just going to use that as a place to save some information there. It'd be interesting to see. Does it allows me to do that? Okay, cool. It allowed me to do it. So now, I'm just going to hit refresh here and click on the GitHub sign-in button. But here's the thing. We don't have the rest of the code implemented for that. That's not what we need to do. That's the wrong redirect URI. Let me go take a look. Back here, this is where we've got the code from before. This is the repository that I put in the chat. So in our server, we had API webhooks OAuth2 GitHub, and that's a really good URL. So we're going to take this code, And we're just going to copy it over into the other project, because that looks pretty decent on the whole. That really does. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that, and then how do we bring this into the other project? That's a good question. Good question indeed. So we need, now we're transitioning to the Node side of things. So before I do that, let me come here. So it would be API webhooks OAuth2 GitHub. I think is that what I called it? Yeah. That's what the redirect URI would be, exactly. So the problem with GitHub is that it does not have implicit token grants, so it can't be done in a browser. It has to have a server. And so we actually have to redirect back to the server and then have the server redirect back to the client. I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. This is one of the reasons I was putting this off, because it involves writing new code into the Auth project here. I guess I need to register. Ugh. Yeah, it means that there's not like, I'm trying to get out of the habit of saying like all the time. But there is some, hopefully not restructuring that I have to do, hopefully just addition. But I have to support OAuth2, which is different than supporting OIDC. It's a little bit more involved because it's less standardized. And, well, I guess that's not even the problem here. It still would be, because there has to be custom code. OAuth2, everything is bespoke. There's no standard endpoints for anything. So I have to define how to check that a token is valid, which I've already done. So I'm good there. I'm just going to go ahead and hard code this for now. That's what I'm going to do for now. I'm going to go to where I'm loading the routes, and I'm going to say we're just always going to load the route for webhooks. Now I don't remember, was it a post? It's a get. It looks like it's a get, which is kind of silly. But again, these things are not spec'd. That's why OAuth2 is not, it's not that it's a terrible standard. It's literally not a standard. It's just saying, OAuth2 is like the word food. You can't have food. You can have a specific implementation of food. I can make you pizza, but I can't make you food, because there's no such thing as food. Anything could be food, but nothing can be food. Same thing, OAuth2. Anything can be OAuth2, but nothing can be OAuth2. Whereas OIDC, specific. It's like saying, give me a slice of pizza. Give me an OIDC token. It's a very specific thing that doesn't require creativity or imagination to work out. I guess I could just paste this code here. And the one thing that I need to do differently, I'll get rid of that webhooks there. And we already have, I guess we can say this much. We know if there's a GitHub client secret. Well, rather, we know if there isn't a GitHub client secret that we shouldn't load it. So I've got that as kind of a guide I can go by. Request is not defined. Let me go ahead and pull that in. And I use the request that I wrote because it's simple. And when I need it to do something that it doesn't do, I know exactly what to do. It's well documented. I have pretty much succumbed to not invented here syndrome. I started out my career as being very interested in making sure that I was learning from other people and using other people's libraries. But it comes a point where you peel back the curtain and you realize that everyone's at least as dumb as you. So you might as well do it on your own. That's not entirely true. But you get to a point where you can look at code and you can start to see this is code that was done well and this is code that wasn't. And it turns out that most code wasn't done well. Not that you're necessarily going to be able to do it that much better, but maybe you will. I guess it depends. The smaller the thing is, the more likely I am to just write it myself. Especially if the alternative is huge, like was the case with request. I wrote about 500 lines of code. Request is heaven knows how many lines of code and dependencies, etc. So it says URL is not defined. I think that's just because I need to update the linter to tell it. Well, one, I think I should open up. I should probably open up an issue on JS Hint and just say, hey, it says URL isn't defined, but it is. Let's see if anybody else has opened this issue. Goodness knows there's a ton of issues there. Let's see, URL node. Let's see, URL. Let me make sure I've got the latest version of JS Hint before I make this issue. JS Hint at latest. Because there were a couple of things that were fixed recently. Okay, it looks like that actually. Oh, that's because it's fixed because I put browsers true. Let me go back here and see. Yep. URL is not defined. So I'm going to go ahead and put this here. URL should be a global when node true. Node has URL the same as browsers. Let me put down here exactly what it was. It's a little bit terse, but I should just put ES version at the top. There we go. I need to get back to, I need to refine my JS Hint again, because I had it in a good place once a while ago, and then I became much less strict about it, and I need to get strict about it again. Oh, hello and welcome. Feel free to tell me who you are, where you're from, what your interest is in either GitHub authentication or Node or whatever it is. And also, I say this every once in a while, if you like what you like, you get more of what you like. So if you do find you have an aha moment or something like that, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe, just make sure to hit the bell for personalized recommendations so that you only get the stuff that you care about and not the other random stuff that I do occasionally, although 90% of what I do is code. And right now, 90% of that is JavaScript, but that's, I prefer Go, but a lot of stuff you just have to do the way you have to do it. Anyway, so now that's happy. So I need to change, all of this is being prefixed under /API/authn, the place where I'm at in this code. So even though it says app.get /webhooks auth2 GitHub, what it's actually, the full path is actually /API/authn. This is just a subroute. Okay, so we're going to get that. And then all this is doing is validating that the code is a good code. Well, no, this is getting the next bit of the code. This right here was just a trick, a hack, because I wanted to use the search params because the response body is URL encoded, so I wanted to parse it, and the simplest way to do it was just prefix it with a URL and then fetch the search params from it. So there's the token. So if all goes well and we test the token, I guess we don't really need to test the token. It's a convenient thing to do, but it's not a necessary or important thing to do. What we do need to do at this point is return back to the application. So that would require probably res.status code equals, what was it, 301? It's not permanent redirect. 302 is temporary redirect. Temporary redirect. Found. I think 302 is found. 302 is found, right. Okay, so it'd be 302 and res.headers. No. Is it set header? And then location. Then we would need to give it the location to return to, which is probably something that should be set up ahead of time. I guess for right now, we'll just say location is slash, which should be valid enough because it's going to a browser. And then we have res.end, and we want to give it some stuff. So I don't remember the specifics of it. It's probably not necessary anymore, but you used to have to give a body in order for a redirect to work. I think this is going to be good enough for testing, for doing the next little bit of this. So I need to get this into node modules auth3000 lib. Yeah. That should be good enough. And really, it's a little bit more than that. Hold on. Because we need to have access token equals, and there's probably some other search params. We probably need to find what the base URL is. Do we have base URL in here? Issuer. That's what it is. Should it be issuer then? Should be like this. Issuer plus, this might actually be a good case for the old template string. Okay. I think that might be it. So that should parse as a URL, and that should allow us to do here. We should be able to do url.toString, and that should take us back to the application. This isn't to do not one-to-one. This isn't 100% one-to-one, but it gets us in the right ballpark, I think. All right, we should be able to test this now. Maybe. if we're lucky. Oh, and I gotta copy it over. I've got a watcher running on this, so every time the code changes, it restarts. So that's why I'm working from one repository that's the core repository for the Auth project, which is tentatively named Auth 3000. And I'm copying it over into the sample project that I've already had set up from something else, just to kind of play with here. So GitHub sign in. Let's see if we get lucky if I click this, if it takes me to the GitHub sign in. Oh, interesting. It's not what we want, not quite. Let me look at that again. So that happened really fast. I'm actually quite impressed that you didn't notice anything happening. I've already allowed this GitHub application, and so you don't see it pop up in prompt, do you want to allow this application? So it just did the redirect and blink, landed back on that same page. Now the problem is what we should have gotten back here. Let's see, code, request. I got the response. GitHub says, let's take a look at what GitHub says. What do we get? That's fine. So something went on there. Okay, that doesn't quite make sense, because this should have actually been auth-in webhooks. That's why it didn't work out. And I need to rerun npm run get env for that. Okay, now let me get rid of all this code stuff here. Now let's see, it should redirect twice. It should redirect back to the server, to the correct redirect URI, and then that should redirect it back here with the token in the URL. Let's see what we get. Cannot get API auth-in webhooks OAuth2 GitHub. Now why would that be? Let's make sure that this looks right here. I can think of a reason as to why that wouldn't work. So what I need to do is take my GitHub env, and I need to put that into my normal env, which is what Node is reading from. And then let's just see if we can cause that to restart. Did it restart? No, it didn't. Let's see if it'll restart it when it dies. Alrighty. Let me rerun this. Good. Okay. So I got it to restart that way. So we're going to go back. Actually, this is probably still valid. So if I just hit refresh here. Ba-da-da-da. All right, cool. So this is all the information we get from GitHub. So it's got token type bear. Let me see what it actually gives us here. And I need to add something to the query params to say, hey, this was GitHub, not Google. Because right now, my guess is that if we refresh this, it's going to... interesting. It did not try to log in to Google with the access token, which is just fine. All right, so if we take a look at this, actually let's do the new URL trick here. New URL, whoops, URL. And then let's see if we can get a better look at the search params. Of course not. Of course not. Why would we? Well, just look at whatever. So access token, scope, token type. So we need to add something to that so that we know that this is GitHub. I think okay, here we are. I think what we ought to do is right here do url.searchparams.set and say issuer equal, no, not equals, issuer, and then github.com. What is it actually? Yeah, it is github.com. It's just straight up github.com. That looks good. And let's copy that over. So this way we'll have something in the URL string that on the front end we can identify what it is. Oh. Well, if it isn't sedawk using his real name. Oh, wow, there's a ton of people watching. Hello, everybody. Welcome. What brings you here? Okay, so I just made some changes. I should probably make this a little bit bigger for everybody that's joining in to read. Holy moly. Who knew that 2:23 a.m. was such a popular time? Okay. So I'm going to copy my changes over. I've got watch exec running. Server just restarted. Now, before I actually test this out, I want to change, by the way, because I've got the two projects going, I actually just have a standard symlink going between a couple of folders to share some of the code so that I don't have to copy it back and forth. I probably should have done that with the Node module, but Node modules get really weird with symlinks because NPM decided to be smart and delete everything that it doesn't understand and blah, 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 blah. Anyway. So, but the public folder is symlinked to the development folder that's being served publicly. I'm going to go back into my main.js. And I had something to detect whether or not it got a Google token, and I need to adjust that to let it account for having a GitHub token. Oh, there we go. So that's how it was checking to see if there was a Google token. All right. If not, id.query token. This code is becoming a little too thin or not thin. This code was originally designed just to do a little demo. And so we got it needs to get separated out into a few more functions and then probably a few more files. So this is kind of regret the way this is written right now. I might just change it at this very moment, because what it should do is we should say, well, if we know that we're doing Google, handle Google stuff. But because I was writing it kind of shorthand, we have instead, if it's not Google stuff, then we do this bit that's necessary to do when you don't have a login. Otherwise, all the rest of the code is assumed to be Google stuff, and that doesn't expand well. Okay, we got a couple more comments. Thanks. Suggestions to better node knowledge. There are some things that I put out on, if you check in the doobly-doo, you'll see that there's a link to my Beyond Code channel, because my live stream channel, I just clutter up with anything and everything. I'm live streaming, I'm figuring stuff out. But as I distill things down and come up with stuff that's really valuable, that I feel is really valuable, I sometimes will edit it and put it over on the Beyond Code channel, so that one stays much higher quality. So let me give you a link to that real quick, but I'd say check out the videos that I have that are specifically on Beyond Code and a playlist. Let me just search Beyond Code Bootcamp. I'll just search on YouTube, see if I can bring this up real quick. And then the Beyond Code Bootcamp GitHub stuff. There's kind of a meta repository that I have that has a lot of really good information. So I'm going to link you to this real quick. I'll throw this over here into the YouTubes, and I'll throw it over into the Twitches. So that's the Beyond Code Bootcamp. The real one. And in particular, well, the two most recent ones are actually pretty darn good. The type linting without TypeScript, the async await, promise and error handling with Express, those I think are pretty darn good. The series on loops, that's pretty good. The stuff that has cool thumbnails, those things that I spent time on doing a thumbnail on, are some of the ones that are particularly good, although many of these other ones I should go back and put a thumbnail on. There's one about recursion, that's pretty good. And then let me link in just real quick, and then I'll get back to the code at hand. This is the meta repository on Beyond Code Bootcamp. Whoops, where did I paste that to? Pasted somewhere. I don't know where it pasted. But in the issues in particular, oh, let me bring this up on the screen real quick. I've got some decent, kind of meta issues for resources. Grades of craftsmanship, great API docs, great resume examples, tools for presenting in slides, great README examples, portfolio project ideas, and so on. So these, some of these are eventually going to go onto the Beyond Code blog, which at some point we'll get to that, switching the website over. That I never finished switching the website over because I basically just need to put the email form on the new website and then I'll switch it over. But anyway, I will, let's see, let me get back to the task at hand. Anyway, so I knew at the time that I was doing this, where this is not communicative, that this is the signal for how to know whether or not this is a Google token. That's a really bad signal for that. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that up now, because now we're at the point where, yeah, we need to do something different. So I'm going to take this whole blob here, and I'm going to pull the whole thing out, and I'm going to call this, let's call it complete Google sign-in. We'll call it that. And let's see, parse JWT. So that means I now need to pull this function out. I probably need to pull this function out. So a couple of these functions now are going to find themselves, let's see, in new places. So that was the init function, do stuff with user. Yeah, this is it's growing to the point where it needs a good minor refactor. And I put the async on the parse JWT just because I think there's a use case for that. It obviously can be done synchronously, but there's cases where you would stub this out with something that goes and verifies it in the browser, or I mean, goes and verifies it on the server or something like that, and then decodes it that way. I think that's why I made that one async. Just that's more of an aside. Okay, let's see what else. So complete Google sign-in. What else is it complaining about? Missing semicolons. Really? Okay, this needs to be async. Understandable. Okay, no more complaints. So here's what we need to do then. Okay, that's kind of weird. So if, let's see, oh, the parser is happening there. Okay, so this is not quite 100% correct yet. So this is if it has an ID token. Complete, let's say OIDC sign-in rather than Google sign-in. Let's call it that. That's appropriate. So if we have query ID token, then we can call complete OIDC sign-in. And we probably want to pass in the query, I would think. Do we want to pass that in here? Does it need that? It looks like it would need that. Do we have query defined somewhere else? No? I wonder why I wasn't getting a linter error on that a few minutes ago. All right, and then if we have query, let's say bearer. I see there's a bunch of comments there. I'll look at those in just a second. If I have bearer equals query dot, I think it was token underscore type. That's a pretty good indicator that this is now probably an OAuth2. If we didn't get an ID token, but we got a token type as bearer and an access token, let's say query dot access token and bearer, then we could say complete OAuth2 sign in. And then we need to make a function that's similar to this one. I could start out just making it similar to this one. I'll call it, well, not similar. I'm going to start out making a direct copy. Yeah, let's see. Was that right? So this, I should have commented this. This is just Nix token from browser history. That's what that's doing. It's just getting rid of the token from the browser history. It looks a little funny because it's using this push state stuff. It's doing a replacement of the URL from the browser history. It's a quasi-security concern. I say quasi because so many of these things that people advocate, like, yes, they're true, but sometimes they're true in the order of 15 minutes on a person's computer, that if the computer is compromised, then whatever's compromised in the computer has access to everything anyway, and it kind of becomes a moot point. I mean, I guess I could see it if it was a token that lasted for 90 days or something, but then that's already its own problem. Anyway, and I will get to those comments in just a second. I just want to finish out this thought process first. All right, so let's say access token, and then what did I put an issuer. So we'll say github.com is equal to query.issuer. And then what should happen if that's false? I don't really handle that case. To do, what if it's not Google? And we'll see what will happen, because eventually this is going to become auth in a box. But right now, as I'm building out little pieces, it's just sample code to copy and paste from. But eventually this is going to have to get cleaned up a bit better. So I don't actually need to do that part, or do I? Yeah, I think I do. OAuth2 github.com. Could leave it under OIDC perhaps. And this is a little bit silly, because I guess what should happen at this point... Okay, I think I'm already doing something that I shouldn't do. Because what I should do is when I get the GitHub token and I verify it, I should probably set the cookie on the auth endpoint at that time and not swing it back to the browser to have the browser then go back again. But in order to keep the flow the same for right now, so I'll just put a to-do on this. I'll say to-do, I'll put it inside of this. To-do, this is mute. We could set the auth cookie at time of redirect and include the real our ID token. Okay, now I'm going to take a break and look at comments here. Anything related to real-world projects? Well, it depends. What do you consider to be a real-world project? These are real-world projects. I think that the Async Router is super applicable to real-world projects. Let's see. Making GitHub issues is going to be my new way of documenting these things. For the longest time, I just rely on my memory. Yeah, GitHub issues. And it's funny, GitHub issues don't get used as well as they definitely could. I see in multiple teams, I've seen people not know how to effectively use GitHub issues, basically because management wants them to use some overly complicated management tool that they use for creating charts. And so rather than having simple notes and whatnot that are collected in the area that is appropriate for the scope of work, because scope of programming work does not equate to scope of user experience necessarily. So I see a lot of information gets lost because it goes into these tools that developers hate. I really think it should be the responsibility of the manager to bridge between. The manager's job should be to translate things out of GitHub issues into the Jira type tools. Developers should not be burdened with that because it doesn't help developers be productive and it doesn't help managers manage more effectively. It just puts things in the wrong place. I also invited my client to the repo and said he should add issues. Yeah, definitely. Definitely a great way to go about it. Can't see me, but nodding my head. Okay, cool. Well, I can see you now in my mind, nodding your head. All right. I am going... Oh, and do we have any Twitch comments? No Twitch comments. Twitch is so strange. It's such a different... When people are engaging on Twitch, they're not engaging on YouTube. And when they're engaging on YouTube, they're not engaging on Twitch. I don't know if I've ever had both communities engage at the same time. The things that spark the interest of one community is just so different from the other. Okay, so I'm not going to be able to parse the access token as a JWT because it's not going to be a JWT. That's okay. If github.com is the issuer, yep, that's a good comment there. We're going to put this here. We're going to post it. We're going to put in query.access token. And then do stuff with the user. Terrible function name, but appropriate for the time that it was. Now, is this still going to work? Yeah. Still going to work. Okay, cool. All right, I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm going to try to get this to a good point where we test it. It's probably pretty soon here. We're going to get to a point where we test it, and then I make a commit. I'm going to have to do a separate branch out of this one. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Checkout-b GitHub, because this is going to have to be a whip commit because I'm not ready to fully consider architectural changes that might need to be in place or how the configuration should be presented. Granted, since this library is still in development, it's not too big of a deal, but it is because it is deployed in 2 places, soon to be 3. So even though I'm not ready to say, yeah, this is ready for a truly public release, I'm not going to be posting it to Reddit in the next month probably. But I have 3 different projects that are relying on this, so I need to be slow and metered about it so that I don't break things. And I do break things, but I break them in a fairly smooth way. When I get to 1.0, I'm going to remove everything that's deprecated / backwards compatible. And I do plan to get this to a 1.0. It's just a little bit more needs to be explored first. Because I basically took a hiatus from this project for a month while I was working on something else. And now I'm getting back to it in all 3 of the projects that use it are now converging back on needing this to be at its potential for that project. Okay, so I've got this. The thing that I need to change, I've got the OIDC handler right here. Was that verify Google token? So there was multiple things that needed to happen. Ah, yes. Okay, I understand now. So I actually will need 2 of these for GitHub. And I'll probably need to copy this. Where did GitHub go? Because I got the webhooks, which is the appropriate name for what that is. But then I also am going to need github.com here. And I don't need to do the verify GitHub token so much. Well, I do. Oh yeah. So yeah, we'll just take this one, move that into a verify GitHub token. This right here, this code from the previous exploration of this project. So, hello. Thanks for joining in. Feel free to tell me where you're from and what you're doing, what your interest in Node or GitHub authentication or whatever it is that brought you here is. And then again, I try to say this every once in a while. If you like what you like, you get more of what you like. So if you have an aha moment or feel like something went really well in the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe for more like this, just be sure to hit the bell with the personalized notifications so that you get my code stuff, which is about 90%, literally about 9 out of 10 of the videos I do are code, but I occasionally do some other stuff like electronics or gaming. It's probably higher than 90%, probably closer to 95%. Anyway, so we're going to call that by OAuth2. And let's go find the verify Google token. And we're going to copy that and put in instead a verify GitHub token. And I should link to the prior video on this. Well, it is. I did link to it. I put it in the chat. But I am going to put it in the doobly-doo real quick. I'm going to just go click edit because things get lost in the chat. I'm just going to put in the doobly-doo. We're going to call it prior. So right below the description, before gear and beyond code and the other channel stuff, prior GitHub plus Node.js, GitHub sign in plus Node.js and under 1 hour. There we go. And now I put that in the doobly-doo. Boop. So you've got that. So if you want to go see the how this stuff was worked up to, I feel like that was a pretty, well, definitely more beginner friendly than this is, because this is literally what, part 18 of one project and part 24 of the other. I see I got a couple of other comments. Any way I can help with? I have some spare time, and at the same time I can sharpen my skills. So are you, sorry, there's a little bit of a disconnect between when I see a comment and when you see me read it, about 15 seconds or so, plus I'm only looking over here every once in a while. So what in particular are you asking about helping with? Are you saying anything at all, or is there a particular project that you're interested in that you might like to help with? Okay, so we're going to do that. And we're not going to have verify ops. Basically, just going to be the token. What was the verify ops, though? We don't have to do... verifier. Where'd the JWS come from? Verify ops. Okay, verify Google token. What about this? Oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm kind of doing a higher order function dealio here. Which I don't know. There's probably some options I should have for this, but essentially, yeah, it's not going to be decoding the JWS. I think we'll get back a profile, and that's the closest thing we'll get to that. And that means that I'm going to have to update some other code, because I'm going to have to be able to look up by the profile information. I definitely need to go see the documentation on this. So I should link to that too. We should say C. Oh, and this is not Google token. It's verify. We don't need the client ID. And I'm not sure what generically the options should be for an OAuth2 verification. Because essentially the way that it typically works is every single OAuth2 implementation is different. Every single OAuth2 implementation has a different user endpoint, and the user endpoint or profile endpoint returns different data. OIDC is very specific. There's a list of standard claims like email, given name, family name, etc. OAuth2 doesn't have that. OAuth2 is the Wild West. Everybody just implements it any way they want without any rhyme or reason. And that's why you have to have 100 million OAuth2 libraries. And things like Passport became popular because they gave you a way to get access to 100 different incompatible OAuth2 implementations in a fairly easy way. Okay. I got to think about this a little bit. I do think it still should return a function. I think it should still return a higher order function. So let's go with this. Function rec res next. I think that's still appropriate. We don't need it to actually reply. We do need to get access to probably, was it headers authorization here? Yeah, I think it was. So we'll do the same thing up here. We'll get, it's going to be a token, not a JWT. And this is going to be async. And then let me go grab request again. There we are with that. And then, and this is something that is, it's got pros and cons to it. I like the pattern of not requiring things until you need them. There's not many cons about it, but the main con is that if you forget to install something, you don't notice it until the code that runs it needs it. But the benefits are that you don't load things into memory that you're not actually using, because a lot of times there's 100 million options that a program can support. And you don't need to install or load all of those dependencies if you're not using those features. So if you lazy load, and there's no penalty of requiring something over and over and over again. It doesn't have to redo the work. It only requires it once. It goes into the cache, and then when you call require again, it's just returning it as an object from the cache. You also can avoid circular dependency problems, although I think you should architecture code in such a way that you don't have circular dependencies, because I think that points to its own problem. But if for some reason, if you're in the middle of a refactor, it's kind of annoying to deal with those types of problems. So if you just lazy load a require, you can get around the circular dependency while you're refactoring and figuring out where things belong and whatnot. So I think there's more benefits to lazy loading than there are detriments, but there are detriments. Anyway, so we've got, I was gonna pull up the GitHub documentation, GitHub API user, just so we can see what that object looks like. And this is something I do want to add more type linting with JSDoc to this. And let's see. And I'm going to take a look at the comments now. I see a bunch of comments are coming through here. Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing about a project that I can't come back to for a month. Mentorship takes time and effort as well. And also, to let you loose on a project, I have to have the roadmap fairly well defined. So it is difficult for me, especially not knowing what your capabilities are, to understand what I need to do to define the project well enough that you could help with it. So if you want to help with a project, I need to know as much about your interest and your skill set as possible. And then I still have to take time to define what needs to be done. And in the cases of smaller portions of work, it literally takes more time to define what needs to be done than to do it, because the process is exploratory anyway. And so in exploring what I'm doing, I find out what needs to be done. So if the project, there's probably some work in this particular auth project that I could scope out very well. For example, I want to integrate Microsoft sign-in. That's something that is important to get done. I have some resources for that. I don't remember where I put them, but I do have a collection of links where I've identified what I believe is the correct Microsoft documentation. Because we have the problem, when I went to implement Google, one of the problems with Google is that most of the documentation is incorrect. They have lots of documentation to these different libraries and these different setups, but what I needed to know was just what's the raw technical information. And a lot of that actually wasn't available with GitHub. The information was super clear, super awesome. And Microsoft, it's kind of in between. But that could be a greenfield project where you could take on figuring out the Microsoft sign-in, but the majority of what the deliverable is that would be not the code. The deliverable would be the documentation and little code snippets, like what I've done. If you watched the prior video for this project, where I just went through in an hour, read through the GitHub documentation and produced a working demo, that plus documentation and links is what I would need as the deliverable for Microsoft sign-in, because I'm going to have to go through and do exploratory stuff that I could not explain to you because you don't know what's already been in my head unless you watch the first 20 or 30 hours of me creating that auth library, in which case maybe you do. And if you do, and you felt confident that you could continue on in the spirit of the way the project is heading, you could make some PRs to it, but it's a lot less risky to say, okay, just create a demo on DigitalOcean with DuckDNS with Microsoft and deliver me the documentation and the sample code. Okay. So yeah, and I think that the Microsoft sign-in is OIDC, so it would have JWT stuff in it. I'm trying to find out about Async Router. You said about it, but I don't see it in your videos. Okay, I will link you to that one real quick. It is, let's see, specifically Async Router, and this is what I ought to just start including in. So remember, the channel to look at for this is the actual Beyond Code channel, because every time I do one of these streams, I say, I'm AJ O'Neill, this is Beyond Code Live, but there is an actual, Beyond Code channel that is the sometimes the more concise content. It's not these ranty long live streams where I'm chatting back and forth with people. It's the here's how to do something, and it might still take 30 minutes, but it's a lot of information packed into that. And this one is 20 minutes long. There you go. That's at root async router. That will make you better at doing Express. So that is the channel to subscribe to for the more concise stuff right there. Or maybe concise isn't the right word, because it's not necessarily super concise, but it's more focused. I've already gone through a process, and I am doing something that's a little more directed and where the outcome is more well known. Whereas with this, this is complete. What we're doing right now is just completely exploratory. We don't know what the outcome is. I haven't written the code yet. That kind of thing. Anyway, what I wanted to get back to was user, and this looks right. Or is it? Get the authenticated user. Yes, this is correct. So that is all the information that we get. We get login, which is the username, which we could use as the suggested username if somebody were signing up to something. Okay, we get name. We get email. Email, I think, is the most important thing. So thank goodness, profile information comes back and it has email. So notably, name, email, and what else maps pretty well to, let's see, login, suggested username. And the name would be, it looks like name is a given plus family, arbitrary. Not sure what that is. Is there anything else here? We don't see email verified. So that's interesting. That's, I'd like to know, is email verified? I have a feeling that it isn't, which is an important point. Let's see. GitHub OAuth2 verified email. Because if somebody has an email listed in their profile as a readable property, that does not mean that GitHub has sent them an email and that they've clicked something to verify that. So if you were to use GitHub login and think, oh, I get the user's email from the profile, then you could make it really easy for people to hack your site by just creating a random junk GitHub account and then putting any email that they want in the public email field, and then picking an email address of one of your users, such as a high profile user on your project. But let's see. Let's see what we get here. Email. Yeah, public email. So is the public email verified? That's the question that we need to answer next. Ah, here we go. User emails. Very good. And then we get whether or not the email is verified. So let's see. Emails verified. Yes, this is very important. Interesting. How many emails could they have? I am going to assume that they do not have 30 emails on their account. User emails. But we do get verified. So, yeah, this gives us a little bit of a conundrum. Because essentially what we could do is we could go through all verified emails and say, does the user have an account with any of these emails that we should associate? And the public email and the profile is not necessarily verified. Unless it is. But I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure I've put in emails in the organization's public profile and not had any guff about, oh, you need to go verify this. Very, very, very important that we found that. And that I remembered to check that, because that's one of those things you could easily forget to check. Alrighty. Okay, so I don't really care that much about username and such. I don't think. How do I want to handle this situation? This could be a little bit more complicated. You know what I think I'll do? If their primary email address is not verified, I'll use their primary email address. And if their primary email address is not verified, it's a no-go. Simple. So what email do you use to log in with GitHub becomes the question. And this actually, okay, this is a good discovery too, because this actually makes it feel like it does make sense to not set the cookie yet, but have more that goes on. Because what I could do is I could go ahead and fetch, when I'm doing the token exchange, I could go ahead and fetch the email information and then ask, which email do you want? So, I think I'm just going to go with, let's go with email. Emails. Is it emails? Let's see, emails with an S. Okay, and it comes back as an array with objects. Got it. All right, so there we are. And then we're going to have kind of this whole, let's see, it's underscore JWS, but now there's going to need to be an underscore OAuth2. Rec dot underscore OAuth2 is equal to, and then we're going to have maybe like name and email. But what if it fails? Yeah. I think I have an error already for unverified email. Let me go check and see. Let's look under lib errors. No, I don't have one yet, but I'll have to have one. I'll have to have, let me just go ahead and put that in there now. So, oh, unverified OIDC identifier. Yeah, this is right. So this would be email. So what I'm going to just do here is throw e dot, and then we can call this one email, right? And we can have at param string type is optional. There we go. That looks good. And then is it E? Yeah, it is E. I like to call my error packages E because it makes sense. And if you don't believe me, then you're wrong. Okay. So email is rest2.toJSON.body dot body. And it's not for each, but filter. Yeah, filter. I'll take the first one that is identifier. Return identifier dot verified and identifier dot primary. Verified primary. And then identifier dot email is okay, and then we'll do dot map on this. And then we'll get the 0th one. I think that that is good. And so we shouldn't have any errors. But we should get back. It's so interesting. GitHub has authorization token. Oh, hello. Yeah, I don't know if that's a welcome back or a welcome, but I see the numbers have gone blue, blue. So, hello. And feel free to tell me where you're from, what your interest is, and hanging out on the channel if you've been here before. Whatever. Yeah, so anyway, to finish my thought from before I got distracted by seeing people joining in, almost all of the OAuth2 and OIDC implementations use authorization bearer, but GitHub uses authorization token, which, if I'm not mistaken, is one of the few things that is standardized in the OAuth2 spec, which was created by Facebook, which Facebook doesn't use. But Google created OIDC, more or less, and there's some stuff from OIDC that they don't use. So, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. But it's just kind of interesting because everybody uses bearer because that's what it was called de facto, and nobody ever switched over to using token. I'd look this up in the RFC at some point. I might be misquoting it right now, but I remember going down this rabbit hole once. Anyway, so I'm not going to grab the profile information right now that has the username and stuff. I'm just going to grab the list of emails because that's what I need to be able to tell if they're verified. And if we don't get a verified email, then I know that I can't continue. I need to throw. Because we don't ever, with all OAuth implementations, anything of that sort, you always need to check, is the email verified? You cannot assume that because an email is in someone's profile that the party that is doing the work that you want to be done has actually checked the email. So it could be a big security flaw. Because imagine if I just put in your most important customer or client or a celebrity's email address into my GitHub profile or whatever. I mean, I don't think that celebrities use GitHub, but you get what I'm saying. Some sort of social login. I could just go change my email address on a social login to match my target and then get logged in as them. Okay, so I think we don't need to do the name yet. Actually, let me do this a different way. There we go. I feel a little bit more comfortable about throwing this in like that. I feel that that's more, what's the word? Resilient, potentially? So yeah, we're going to assume, and then I can do some typing on this, like so. And I can say at type def called GH emails. No. It's an array of, no, that's not. I want to type def GH email. And then separately, I want to type this as an array of GH email. Yes, that's what I want to do. So let's say at property Boolean verified string email Boolean primary. There we go. Just so I'll get a little bit of type linting in this if I mistype something. And I'll put that in my types file later. I don't think I actually have my type linting turned on right now in this project. I'll do that later. Okay, so all of that was just to say we're going to get the email addresses and if we don't end up with an email address, we're going to throw an error. Good. That's what all of that is to say. So let me go take a look at verify OIDC. And this all looks good. Similar, similar, similar. Okay. I don't really need to catch that. I don't understand quite what would go wrong there. But I think this is good enough. I think this is our verify GitHub token bit. And I just don't know what the options are right now. So I guess since I don't know what they are right now, I should just not have them and assume that I could have them in the future. Whoops. I don't know what they'll be. So that's done. And then we've got by OIDC. Where is that set up? It's set up here. Okay. So we're going to take this and we're going to bring it over to the GitHub. And by the way, Kiran, are you still on? I don't know if I pronounced that right. You'll have to help me out with pronunciations. Because I would be interested in discussing a way to do the Microsoft login, if that's something that you'd like to try to take on. Okay, what am I doing? What did I do that for? I don't know what I did that for. Hold on. No, we're going to take this and we're going to bring it in right about here. So again, this is kind of sloppy. I'm going to get this working. I'm going to do a whip commit, and then I'm going to go to bed. Putting this in a separate branch. It's not really that sloppy. It's just I'm exploring. I'm figuring out what this code needs to be, and so I'm not worried about making it look too pretty right now, or refactoring it correctly. So OAuth2 is a strategy. And what are we going to get? OAuth2.email. And we should be able to define an Auth2 issuer. I need to figure out what I want this to be throughout the code. Do I want it to be ish, or do I want it to be issuer? But already, let's say this is https github.com. I think that's fair. Yeah. And then we do not have, do we have a PPID? I don't think we get a PPID from GitHub. I think that the user IDs, unfortunately, are scoped globally. So PPID is pseudonymous pairwise identifier, which basically means that each app that logs in gets a different representation of the user ID, which should be essentially cryptographically random. But Or not random per se, excuse me, not random per se, but cryptographically unique. So I think in GitHub, the ID that it gives you is your global ID. That's more or less the order in which you signed up to GitHub. I think it's just an auto increment, which from a security perspective is not desirable. I think we do want, there might be some of this other information that we do want at some point, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. Avatar URL, that's kind of cool. I'm going to put that in my note here. Sorry, I'm dancing around trying to find this thing here. We've got avatar URL. So we can get this to fold over. I'll just make it fold over. Okay. Verify GitHub token. All right, so what am I doing? Yeah, unfortunately, well, I can make kind of a PPID out of this. I'll just call it ID, I suppose. Yeah, but this, no bueno. It's the wild, wild west. And then we're gonna hide that away for later. Okay. So this is a to-do, and the name is a to-do as well. These are the things that are fairly necessary. Okay, so then we've got to git claims. Is there a place where I delete the JWS? Huh, perhaps there isn't. Huh. I think I might want to do that, but auth in param. Oh, that's where it's happening. Got it. All right. So I guess at this point, to do delete rec dot OAuth2. I think that's maybe what I should be doing at this point. By OIDC. We're getting down here to get claims, and then the get cookie session, all that stuff. So I think I'm going to have to update the get claims maybe a little bit to allow for OAuth2. And then I think I'm going to have to update the grant tokens and cookie. And then I think I can test it and be done for the night. Okay, refresh session. Oh, and we do have the trust device, but I don't know what to do about that one yet. Oh, there's a couple of these things that are going to kill me. There's a lot. There really is a lot that goes into on an auth piece. It seems deceptively simple, but it grows and grows and grows. So I don't think the verify session is anything I need to worry about. I'm going to double check on that real quick. Here we are. Yeah, that's not one to worry about too much. Okay, so what's the next bit on the agenda here? I think it's just the strategy. The git claims. So I would also need in here to document in the README where we have OIDC. We also need to have an OAuth2. And then we could do, for example, GitHub, client ID, client secret. That kind of makes sense. And OAuth2 example, GitHub, GitHub sign in. Okay. And then I don't know exactly what we would do here. Huh. Issuer equals? Nope. Okay, I'm going to try this out for size. This is kind of weird looking, but it'll work. There we go. Makes me kind of think maybe I shouldn't be multiplexing this, but maybe instead it should be rec.auth2, rec.oidc, rec.credentials. I don't know. Any thoughts? I don't know about using blocks and case statements. It seems so weird. I mean, it actually seems quite natural. The case statement should just have a block. A case statement should be a block, but syntactically it isn't, and so it has special rules. And so you can't use let in a case because it gets hoisted to the switch, but not quite hoisted. So yeah, weird behavior with let inside of a case. All right. OAuth2. I wonder if Twitter is still on OAuth1. All right, so we got email, issuer ID, OAuth profile. Yeah, this probably needs more documentation later. All right, so we got the webhook implemented. I think we got the session endpoint basically implemented here. It's up to the user. Or the implementer. Some of the stuff is implementation detail. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, now if I go back and I update the app here, now I need to update Auth. It's going to live Auth here. We have OIDC. I'm just going to create this OAuth2. And what am I going to say? There's going to be a break here. And there's going to be something like this. Yeah, I'm kind of afraid that could balloon out so badly because every single OAuth2 implementation is different. And there's 100 of them. It seems like the code here could be really nasty. Hi, thanks for the live session. Would like to work with Node.js. Is this an open source project? Yes, this is an open source project. And there is a link down in the doobly-doo. So there's the first video, well, the Auth project, both of the, there's two projects that are intersecting here and coming together. There's an Auth project, which there have been, I think this is the 24th video in the Auth project series, and this is the 17th or 18th video in the blog series because they come together. And there was the video before this was the simple, okay, we can do the demo for the GitHub login. And now I'm actually figuring out how to implement the GitHub login as part of the login system as a whole, rather than just as a one-off little demo. Oh, hello, I see a few more people have joined. To you all, I'll say the same thing. Go ahead, feel free to tell me where you're from, what you're doing, what your interest in Node is, and how it is I can help you. If you've got any questions, I will do my best to answer them. But when I'm looking over here, that's when I'm looking at the chat. So if I forget to look at it for a little bit, just know when I do come over here, that's what I'm looking at. Sometimes I see the thing going through the corner of my eye, but I don't have any notification set up for it. Sometime I should figure out how to do that. Let's see. And that's not the way that this is going to be. We're not going to have a name here. We're just going to have an email. Let's just put that in there for good measure right now. Okay, and I might be at the point where I can test this now. We'll see. Let's see if the server restarted properly, because every time I make a change, I got watch exec running. By the way, that's the other project that I highly recommend everybody that watches this channel should be checking out, because it's going to help you no matter what programming language you're using. If you're using any of the modern languages, if you should be familiar with the tools on webinstall.dev. Not necessarily 100% of them, but they're tools that are going to help you out. So webinstall.dev. I'll put that in the chat too. Good stuff there. But that's how you can install Node and guarantee that it'll actually work right. That's how you install Go, lots of other stuff, and know that it will actually install as it should. Okay. So I'm losing my stamina here. It is 3:36 a.m. where I'm at. Interesting. Suddenly it's not. Oh, okay, there it goes. Did it come back? Must have been some error here. Did we get, yeah, issuer is github.com. So why, what went wrong? What went wrong in this situation? I need to go look back at the front end code for a second. Where's that at? Public JS main. All right, console.log access token. So we had a redirect. We should at least see, whoops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's bring this back. It says refresh token may be empty. But what about, I just got an access token. It just redirected me back here. So what's going wrong in this situation? Okay. This is bearer the token type. Token underscore type issuer equals GitHub. Does it say access token or is it just token? I thought it said access token. Yeah, it says access token. So everything is looking right here. Let's go ahead and do console.log debug. And maybe I didn't do did I do a refresh before? Maybe I didn't do a refresh. Maybe that's my problem. What are we getting? Debug, query, undefined. Okay, so that's our problem. Our problem is that it's not parsing the query string because, let's see, can a server do a redirect that includes a hash? I think that it can. I think that it can. So let me go back and let's see. Let me go check this out. Argentina, living in Amsterdam. Wow, a world away. My wife has a friend from, I think, Brazil that is living in Sweden. Yeah, it's crazy to me that just that is such a location change. Working on a fashion company e-commerce project. Okay, cool. Your channel is definitely interesting for me. Thanks for this. You are welcome. You are absolutely welcome. Thanks, Hugo. Let's see. So what I needed to do, there's a place where I was changing, whoops, typo, changing the location. I think what I need to do here is add that in, that pound character. Because on the front end, yeah, that should work. And this will allow us, well, I guess it doesn't change much, really. But that just keeps it so that the parsing is the same as what it already has been up to this point. Okay, let's refresh again. There's a bunch of stuff I can get out of here now. By the way, this project, which is the prior video to this, the direct previous video in this series, that this project is in the doobly-doo. And also in the chat if you scroll up. Okay, so that one I don't need to worry about. That's not I don't need to worry about. All stuff I was looking up. I've already documented this, put comments in the code. Okay, cool. All right, so are we still having, still query undefined. Okay, a couple of things though. One, I forgot to sync that over. Two, let's just pretend that this works and let me put that in there. Then what do we get? All right, good. Then we get our access token. Interesting. I think I should go. Let me change this. Whoops. Let me change the server bit. So I'm just going to leave that commented out. I shouldn't say is not, but may not be one-to-one. Okay, let me go ahead and sync that over. And then let me see. This token, I think it's been long enough. That token's probably not valid anymore. But we'll see. What if I do like this? Then what do I get? Ah, congrats, you win. Check the console for your token. Unexpected error. But I know why that is. Unexpected error in this particular case is going to be the problem with the localhost SSL certificate. Yep, it is. All right, so I'm at a point where I can do a whip commit. I've got things working. I'm tired. It is time for me to hit, as we say, the nani land. Also, why is this still in here? That should be taken out. Shouldn't have that in the logs anymore, right? I think that was supposed to be like if dev or something. And what is this about? Oh, whoops. I was looking in the wrong part of the... Okay, I see. That's okay to leave there because this is just part of the front end demo anyway. Normally I don't use console.log for things that I intend to stay. Normally I use console.info. And I use console.debug if it's something that should be turned on with the debug option. So I think I'm actually going to change these over to console.infos because that's what they represent. This is a demo application, and outputting this information isn't just a temporary log. It's actually useful for the demoable experience. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Console.log. We don't need to put those out anymore or this out anymore. I'm just going to comment them out for now. And no, I delete them. Just delete them. I don't need that cruft laying around. And then I should do something to check the state, I guess. To do check state. It's more on the front end, I think. That's where I want that state to pass through. So where did I set this? Let's go ahead and set the state back as well. Was it rec.query.state? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And then what was this one supposed to be? It was supposed to be Github Redirect URL, right? And I should look at that later. I'll just put a to-do here. to do. Okay. Yeah, I'm getting really tired. I really do need to wrap this up, commit it, and head to the 9090 land. Okay, I think that's good. Is there any more console logs I need to get rid of? No. Okay. Cool. Well, I think I've accomplished the intent for the evening. Let me just reset here. Ascent, so first, chore, update for URL. And browser, env2.js hint rc for URL object. That's what's doing there. And then readme lib errors. Wait, what did I change in errors? Did I change anything in errors? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, cool. That's fine. Just a little thing. Session. Diff utils. Yep. Redirect URI. Got it. Looking good. So pretty much all of these changes were for the purpose of everything here. Feature and GitHub OAuth2 sign in. Yeah, that's cool. And then I'm going to go ahead so that I don't forget, and I've got a record of it, and other people that are looking on the project, few though they may be, there are some, because this is now in use in 3 different projects. I'm going to go ahead and open a pull request, and I'm just going to call this whip. Add GitHub. Okay, seems to be working, but needs review. I think, yeah. Refactor and review. Cool. Well, I'm really excited to now be able to use GitHub login with this. What this means, hopefully, there's probably going to be one more video where I will do the cleanup on this. Kind of just think through, or that might happen off camera, because there's a couple of things that have had to happen off camera, because like I said, this is in 3 projects, and so there's some little bug fixes or minor adjustments that have had to happen as they go. So, oh, hello. Well, welcome to those of you joining in. I'm actually just about to sign off, but I'm kind of doing a review of what's been done and what's coming up next. So, yeah, refactoring. I have it so that it's working. It's not quite up to snuff with the way the implementation ought to be. In fact, there's one little minor thing that I'm going to go ahead and add right now so that the documentation is not out of, not messed up. OAuth2 to do. There we go. And I'm just going to add that as a fix-up, which I commonly just say F, because basically I'm going to squash that out. That's what's going to happen with that. So anyway, I've got it working. I know that I need to think through it just a little bit more before I pull that into the next version of the project for adding in the GitHub OAuth. And also, I'm really not going to know what the OAuth2 functionality should look like, because each provider can be so different, until I've done 2 or 3 of them. So, you know, this may launch in 1.0 potentially with some mistakes, because I think the only pure OAuth2 provider that I'm going to be doing is GitHub, because almost everything else I want to work with has been upgraded to OIDC. So Google's using OIDC now. I think Facebook uses OIDC now. Could be mistaken about that. I should double check on that. Microsoft uses OIDC. I'm not sure what LinkedIn is. So I should probably check into the story with Facebook and LinkedIn to see if they are actually updated to OIDC or if they're still on OAuth2. But anyway, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and create that pull request so that I've got my work documented for myself and others. And since I'm really past my limit in terms of where my mental capacity is at, I kind of hit that sharp decline just within the last 10 minutes where I was, going and doing pretty well. But now mentally, I'm just not able to think through things really well or explain myself really well. So with whatever I forgot to explain, we're just going to end it there. If you like what you like, you get more of what you like. So if this was useful for you or you found it, had any aha moments or learned something new, I'd appreciate it. And if you want to subscribe, click the bell and select personalized notifications so that you get the stuff that's most relevant to you, because 95% of what I do on the channel is code stuff, but occasionally I do some gaming or electronics or some random thing. So anyway, thanks for joining in. I appreciate it. Continue to leave me comments, questions, and of course you can find me if you want to email me with a question or something that you have throughout the week. And then I typically am streaming later in the evenings. Right now it's 4 a.m. where I am, so I try not to go this late, but I like coding in the evenings. It's everybody's asleep. It's easier to focus then. Anyway, but it's not easier to focus right now because tired brain. So y'all have a good night. Thanks for joining in. Appreciate you. And I will catch you around. So adios.